What's up, y'all? Welcome to Bad Analogies, where we are exploiting every loophole, dodging every obstacle, and penetrating the bureaucracy. I'm Chris West, and as always, I'm here with Alex Mashork.
Welcome. Happy to be here.
How's it going, man?
Awesome. I am more excited to start episode 2 than episode 1.
That's good. You're not as nervous. You're not as, yeah.
I was very excited and nervous last time. Primarily because you want something to be good when you do it. And when you start, there's almost certainty that it won't be good.
Yeah, which is actually a great segue into like what we're going to be talking about today, right? Expectations versus reality. So, with that being said, with expectations versus reality, like we were talking about this earlier, and there were just things that, whether it's sports or movies or food or drink or whatever it is, there's like an expectation of like, this is going to be the greatest thing ever, and then the reality sets in of, not so much. So what are some things that you were thinking about with that topic?
Well, so there's trivial things. At first, it sounds like you see these memes online and people post them and it's like expectation and it's like how they look, they think they look, and then in reality how they really look. Which there's something true there, or else it wouldn't be funny and no one would laugh at it. But there's also I was thinking about this earlier that Hulu made a ad series, advertisements, where it says don't ever sleep in a king size bed, it ruins normal beds forever, or it's like don't ever fly first class, it'll ruin coach forever. And I was thinking to myself, I was like, is that true? Like, think about this. Okay, so you have lesser goods and higher goods. Higher good would be first class, lower good would be coach. Travel is the shared good between them. Okay, getting to your destination. But the question is this: does experiencing a higher good, like fine dining, ruin Taco Bell? Because I would say, no, my brother Jeremy, his sort of, I don't want to say, he would accuse me of being like a snob in certain things, right? He'll say, oh, you went to University of Dallas and you're a snob. Okay.
Bougie, yeah.
Okay. But he makes a good point that he goes, see, your problem, he said this in so many words. This is not a verbatim quote, but he would essentially say, oh, you can't enjoy lesser things anymore because you have focused on only enjoying more of the higher goods. Does that make sense? So does it aiming to have better things? And this seems like a pretty basic take. Like if you're improving your life, does it actually, or is it possible to enjoy Taco Bell and fine dining in Mexico City?
Yeah, I think it really depends on like the situation or the circumstance.
Yes.
Right? Like you use the example of Taco Bell. I think the last time I had Taco Bell was like, it's been at least a decade since I've had Taco Bell.
And everyone would say that for the most part, you're a better person for that.
Right. Yeah. Like objectively, health-wise, digestively. The grade of meat, I think, is one above
pretty
dog
sure there's
food.
Sawdust in it. Yeah.
So objectively, again, with that example, I think that, they're like, I don't know what there is anymore to enjoy with Taco Bell, right? But I think there are some things that that we can enjoy the simpler things. Yeah, it's good to be simple, right? Like we shouldn't just require like the ultimate or the best of anything. I mean, I think we'd be pretty broke if that were the case at all times.
A story comes to mind.
Go for it.
My buddy Jordan and I were just at a coffee shop nearby, and it's a new. There's a parent company. It's not a chain. It's one of these farm to cup, places. It says it on the wall. It says farm to cup.
And like, I thought they grow the beans.
Like I thought to myself, no, it's somewhere in like Zimbabwe or something. And I thought to myself, we're in an area where like farm to cup would actually be a selling feature to somebody who's drinking it like who's coming here, right? Meaning
Yeah.
the person is wearing Vineyard Vines and but they also give like no money to charity, but they like the idea of drinking a cup that is like
organic,
and morally sourced and that kind of thing. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, let's not be too judgy.
Yeah,
but
not be too judgy.
but there's something there. So I'm at this establishment. So
yes.
you know, I also was wearing my fa la 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 llama Christmas jacket. With llamas,
I've seen said jacket.
With llama, it's bright red with like it's suit
llamas.
jacket.
Yes.
Anyways, so we're there, and my friend, I thought of this sort of expectation versus like reality disappointment thing because my friend, who's in town he's been studying in Oregon. Mm-hmm. What are they known for in Oregon?
Coffee.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Seattle, like Oregon, it's like the hub.
Right. So Seattle's in Washington, not in.
Well, no, I know that, but I mean, I'm saying
gotcha.
in the Oregon, Washington area, that's where. Yes, thank you. I know where Seattle is. I'm just saying he's in like he's not near Portland, but anyways, so he's up there. He was kind of a coffee connoisseur before, but when he went to Oregon and came back, it was over. It was over for him. He knows everything about coffee.
Everything about coffee.
And he also has very high standards now. So we're at this place. We're getting coffee, and he says to the waitress, this is a quote. He says, "Do you have any single origin beans?"
Okay. And what does the waitress say? She's like, what the heck are you talking about?
She's a little dumbfounded. She's like, I could ask the baristas or whatever.
Yeah.
And this place just opened up. So I'm looking at him and I said, did you just say ask if they have single origin beans? But he goes on to explain to me that at certain coffee shops where they focus on craft, coffee type thing, they're a little more high scale, bougie. They go, he says there's a primary roast that's a darker roast, and he does this little sour face like, oh, you wouldn't get the darker roast. That's for amateurs. And then he says,
I love dark roast coffee.
Yeah, I know. And then he says, and he goes, but as to say there's a top shelf off menu bean, he says they usually have like a lighter bean that's a single origin bean, which means it's not mixed. I said it's not a mixed bean. He goes, it's not a mixed bean. Okay.
You don't want mixed beans.
I don't know. You learn a lot about a man. The way he drinks his coffee.
He drinks his coffee.
Or mixes his beans. So basically, anyway, so I was thinking about this, and I was like, is my buddy able to enjoy coffee from anywhere else now that he's experienced the best coffee in the country? And part of me thinks no. Or you could say, think about this, 10% of coffee in the world is now what he comes to know what coffee can be. Now that he's tasted it, 90% of coffees all over the world just went down in their original value in his mind. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I think about is like it's almost like his taste has matured, right?
Okay.
And so like
I see where this is going. I know where this is going.
Do you?
No, I think I do.
Okay, so like when we're kids, we watch cartoons.
Yes.
Right, and like, but there comes a point where you don't watch cartoons anymore. Not Disney movies, not The Incredibles, of course, right?
We won't speak of these things.
But yeah, like you kind of mature.
Reliving the glory days is better than acting like they didn't happen. Okay, I don't know what that's from. Maybe that's a quote, but there's a time when you move forward. Then
I think there is, but at the same time, there is a point in which I think watching cartoons or like a cartoon movie like can speak to I don't know what I'm trying to say. You
could use it as like
you can use it as
you could use it as an allegory or something like that. Later in life. But the question is, and we're extrapolating from this simple analogy of coffee to is it. Should someone, if you were to look at that and say, wow, I don't want to lose interest in 90% of things in life or 90% of cups of coffee, right? I don't want to lose my savor for those things. Is it then good to avoid, right? Now, of course, you would say based on the circumstances.
Based on circumstances,
having a really fancy dinner once a year for an anniversary or
Right.
something, we would say that's not going to kill your...
No. But if that changes your, like, in order to go out, like,
Right.
I need to go and, like, I need to spend at least $100 a plate.
Yeah.
Then that's a little, that's a
So
little
then there
ridiculous.
would be, to push this to a ridiculous level of precision, there would be a frequency
Yes.
at which you would cross over the line of needing that as your standard. Meaning if you ate 6 dinners out of 10 at that level, then the 4 would now no longer be enjoyable if they were just humble meals. Or 1 meal a year, a really high level, wouldn't ruin your enjoyment of humble, mundane meals. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, there's a point at which your frequency of enjoying of nice things now becomes your expectation.
Right.
And so there's probably a fine balance between moderating how, or setting a standard for yourself, like, when I get coffee, I want the best cup of coffee. Right?
Yeah.
You should almost be like, I want the... Yeah. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. I feel like there's also a line of, like, taking yourself way too seriously in that regard, right? Like,
yes.
Or you know what I mean? Like,
what do you mean?
And just being kind of snobby about that.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not trying to say your friend.
But no, like, I'm not dogging on him at all.
Yeah.
I'm using it simply to say that there are other areas in life. For instance, some people are this way about, like, alcohol.
Yeah.
Some people are this way about...
But you don't go into, like, you don't go to a party.
Yeah.
Right? And ask for, like, hey, so what's your top shelf thing?
Yeah.
But if someone says, hey, can I get you a drink? Then you say, yeah.
Yes.
And to be a snob about, like,
yes,
you know, a free drink or whatever, I think that is a little... That's a little shady, right? That's a little.
We would look down upon that person.
We would look
as
down
having
upon,
almost no class.
Yeah.
In their attempt to be classy.
Like insist. Never mind.
But
yeah, it's a little. But and I think you can enjoy that. The things in life that are like food and drink and other things like that. Like, it also matters, like, who you're with, you know, and like the environment in which you're in, you know, like, if you ask anybody who's like, or what their favorite wine is, and the normal person, not like sommeliers, you know, but like a normal person, you know, and like what their favorite wine is, they'll tell you about the experience and the ambiance, and not about like the wine.
Let me reverse this though.
Yeah.
To counteract maybe the perception some people might be having from what I said about the coffee. Or my friend Jordan, you could argue, enjoys coffee more than people who don't think anything of. They're like, oh wow, a warm cup of coffee, this is great.
Yeah.
But the sommelier, for instance.
Yeah.
Does a sommelier enjoy fewer wines? Probably. He probably enjoys fewer wines, right? Right?
Yeah.
Than the average Joe.
Yeah.
The average Joe walks into Kroger and gets whatever he needs, or if you're in another part of the country, like Safeway or you know, some other establishment where you buy groceries. But no, but you walk into Kroger and you get a bottle of wine, and it wouldn't, you know, if you're not a trained sommelier, you're not like, oh, this tastes like rubber bands, right? Like so they have fewer wines probably that they enjoy, like, universally. But do you think that they enjoy more about wine because they understand things on an intellectually, like, more,
for sure,
like, deep level? They know where it comes from, why it tastes that way.
For sure. So I mean, like getting into like marriage. Yeah. Right. Marriage, I think, is a good analogy of that, or like at least a good. Like serious topic, right? Especially for us as Catholics, right? We don't look at marriage as just like another like thing to do, or like it is a commitment, and it is a vow, it is a sacrament that you confer on each other, and it's a serious thing. And if it was just like another thing, or like the thing to do, then it would lose its. And you're relating that to your expectations. And the reality of that, as you're saying, is very different. Yeah. You're saying, would you say that marriage is like being a sommelier? Probably not.
Because they spit out wine.
Yes, they do spit out wine. Yeah. No, but like the reality of wine is that the particular like grape, they can taste where the grape came from. Right. And like they can like get down into the nitty-gritty of like so many crazy details about it. Right. So the reality of it is that, and I guess for marriage, there's a deepness and a reality to marriage that like.
Does it differ from the expectations of
the majority of people? Absolutely.
Oh, it's okay. So these is like the 90% drinking McDonald's coffees.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. But the expectation. So, but for you, what was the expectation before? Because we were talking about this earlier in relation to this sort of dynamic between what we expect and what we actually get. What when you went into getting married, did you think was the case or think about it, but then you realized was either different or opposite or at least something that you changed the way that you realized I didn't expect this or I didn't know that this was a part of it, or if it didn't, or it could be a good thing. It could be like I didn't realize it'd be this awesome in one respect.
Yeah. So two things that I think about. And how they relate to expectation versus reality. I'm not sure, but maybe you can. Yeah, but the question just made me think of two separate things. So one, right, like in January it'll be 6 years that Teresa and I have been married. Wow. So that's pretty awesome. And so within that we've have experience in fertility and stuff. And like one of the things that we're going through is the expectation of like once you get married, like you have kids and like
that's a huge one.
Yeah, that's huge.
Not like I was hoping that my seat in the airplane would be more comfortable.
Right. Yeah. That's
like
that's
massive.
A human relationship that is totally different. And so, but the reality of like Teresa and I, growing together. But also growing in our own individual like relationship with God, and like it's been really awesome. Like to be able to.
Some people would say that how can you say that? Like, and I'm not saying this, but for people who might, for instance, let's say like think about it. You get married. You guys have had to struggle. Through this. Mm-hmm. For you to say it's been kind of awesome. Yeah. How can you say that, and what do you mean?
Well. So, I mean, it's a cross, right? It's like the cross, and there are many anybody looking at the crucifix.
This is my cross. There are many like it, but this one is mine.
Yeah, but anybody looking at the crucifix, like the early Christians, were looked at as lunatics, as insane people, because they're hanging up a torture instrument from their from their walls and like etching it in the ground and in the catacombs and stuff like that. Like they're raising this torture instrument as like a symbol of goodness and beauty and hope and everything like that. So for us, that infertility is definitely a beautiful struggle. Right, and a beautiful sacrifice, and a beautiful, obviously hard, right? But really beautiful. And so the other thing that question made me think of is kind of has to do with it. But we were at a wedding one time, or I was at a wedding, and the priest giving the homily was the bride's uncle.
Got it.
And one of the things that he said was. May this day be the worst day of your marriage. And everyone in the congregation was like, wait, what? What is this guy talking? Who's this guy?
Yeah.
Who's this guy? He said, because if you're married for 50 years and you look back and this was the best day of your marriage, then what the heck were you doing for 50 years? Why were you not building it up And so let every day be the best day of your marriage. And that's kind of like a mindset thing,
Sure.
as opposed to like maybe a like reality objective, like
Sure.
good thing.
But he was setting. What was he doing there?
He was setting them up.
He was setting their expectations.
Exactly.
Meaning, like,
exactly.
he
He was, or at least like
orienting them.
tweaking their expectations.
Because ideally, at least I guess, if we were to make sense of that, what he's saying is that you should be working on creating days and moments and
Correct.
learning things and realizing and discovering things and growing in certain ways that is greater than
Right.
what you had when you started the marriage, which is pretty awesome. And I don't think I think a lot of people do probably think like, this is the happiest day of my life, and then it should stay there. Like it should, like,
we went to a wedding earlier this year, and
to
it's
have a
like,
better day,
best day ever.
Yeah.
And it's like we see that, we both see that, and we both like look at each other and we're like, they don't get it. Because the reality of this situation is like, if again in 50 years, if this is the best day, what are you doing?
Why? Yeah. You've just, so that's like one really good cup of coffee.
Yeah.
And then just 90 days of McDonald's. Yeah. Which, in 50 years. But, which a lot of people in a blind taste test say McDonald's is the best coffee. But I don't know why I know that. Probably because of, my own snobbery.
Yeah.
But, so on a, would you say then, how should we approach setting expectations then if we are to assess reality either in the best way or in a way that is most accurate? Meaning, like, with regard to, let's just say something like, something like marriage. Like, if you, so I'm not married, you are.
Yeah.
As far as setting, do you think that what your expectations are of marriage going in, something like marriage going in, change how you actually experience it? Two people have the exact same life, two carbon copy people, right?
Yeah.
One expected this to be the best day of their life. One expected it to be like the start, but not the best. Like, how they encounter the first fight, or how they encounter how they encounter certain things along the way, the reality of whatever they're starting. Mm-hmm. And this could be the case for a job, or this could be the case for a trip or experience. Do you think that what you expect beforehand actually changes how you perceive it in the present?
I know this doesn't like poignantly like answer the question, but just the fact that we're talking about this, like expectation.
Here we go.
Right? Like, we are so different than like animals. My dog Bosco doesn't think one bit about like the expectation of like the next 10 years,
right?
Or something like that. It's just really cool to like
my dog in his kennel right now is not thinking to himself, is he gonna put me in here for a couple hours every day for the rest of my life? He's not. He's like, how can I chew up this toy?
Exactly. Or like exactly. So it's just interesting. So but to get back on the question, or get back on topic, I think as a Christian, as a Catholic, right? Like, I think it is really important to have God be a part of that, right? Like of those expectations and stuff like that. And I don't know, like, I've been asked many times, like, what's your 5-year plan or 10-year plan and stuff? And it's like, dude, I don't know. Like, what do you want from me? I don't. And so the answer is not don't have expectations. Like, you should have expectations, but just like, I don't know, with a grain of salt, and like, at least for me and my life, like whenever I think of, or whenever someone says something like, dude, this movie was the best movie ever, it's awesome, it's a great, and like, I tend to think like, it was good, it was okay.
What do you think? Well, I don't. People know, some people who are close to me know that I don't want to hear anything about a movie. And I don't even tell people now if I want someone to enjoy a movie.
You don't say anything.
No, I will set their expectations low. I'll be like, you probably wouldn't like it, because it does have such an effect. Like, I have been told that people that I know, that when they tell me, and then they say, this is the best movie, you're gonna love this movie, I go in, and if it just barely crosses that bar, then it's like, it was okay.
Yeah.
That's what's weird about it.
Yeah.
And so that's a situation where I would be like, set your expectations absolutely rock bottom. Like nothing. Another good movie will never be made in my lifetime. And then if it's even somewhat better than that, I'm like, celebrate everyone, a movie has been made.
I would never say that to like someone who's about to get married.
No.
You know what I mean? Like
so there's a
it's the word. Like, and I know people who say something like ball and chain and stuff like that. Like, that's
so then
that's
what we're
ridiculous.
talking about then, we're talking about two different things categorically. The first one, movies.
Yeah.
Well, you go to movies for a lot of reasons, but I would say today most people just go simply to like enjoy it. Not a lot of people want to
entertain.
Yeah, they just want explosions and so. But with regard to things like that are higher goods, better things in life, more important things, if we were to reduce them to simply our entertainment value, then it would be to trivialize them and then to cheapen them and then essentially to discard them when they no longer meet that expectation or meet that goal of pleasing me.
Yeah.
This is just for my enjoyment, which of course, we would say with people, that's not something that you could ever that's the whole problem with our culture right now. It's like when you're discarded, when you no longer serve our purposes or no longer you no longer please us, we're done.
Yeah, you're not no longer a cog in the system.
All the little cogs meshed together. So with just to kind of summarize. Because I don't know if we've really reached. I don't know if we've really reached any type of conclusion, but I think there are some things to think about that when it comes to lower goods, right? When it comes to things, that are passing or temporary or maybe not worth dying for. Like the greatest cup of coffee is not worth dying for.
Yeah.
Then there can be a real risk of how do I say this? You can probably skew your tastes and probably diminish your enjoyment of life and the simple things of life if you become a snob. But in some sense you can't treat other important things in life with that model of expectation versus reality. You can't really say, oh, I'll set my expectations low.
Yeah.
That way I'm really thrilled with the movie. You can't do that with life because
you can't do that
because obviously life, and you can't. That's not really a policy. The movie expectation meter setting, you can't be used for life because life inevitably disappoints at times, and that's not necessarily the moment to write someone off, check out, change the movie. So to speak.
It's not a thing. Like, people
relationships and sort of tying back into your situation, like when you find out that you guys, when you find out you can't have kids, that's not a time to change the channel.
Right.
That's not. And if you had the model of my expectations were set here, and therefore they weren't met. The reality is in this area is disappointing. Now, obviously, there's so many other goods there. It's not the only thing. But I'm saying is like that's a real moment where a lot of people today in the world would say,
what can I do to get my reality or the reality that I want?
Exactly. And to the point of doing unnatural or illegal or immoral things. How can I get, how can I shape reality to my expectations?
Exactly.
And I think there's just so many problems today where people say, the world is not as I would want it to be, therefore everyone needs to change their vocabulary. Or the world is not how I want it to be, therefore we need to tear down an entire institution or way of living so that I am normalized. You know what I mean? Yeah. My view is normalized. So I think that it's important to have as accurate as possible an expectation of what you're in for. But I think that priest at that wedding you were saying was really trying to do that. He was trying to say like I just almost went full like cheesy mode. I think a lot of people scramble. We all do. I mean, we all do. Myself, I'm not saying that. When I say people, I mean I'm a people too. That people scramble when, and this can be in small things, right? When things are people, kids get upset when they didn't get, as much ice cream as they thought they would.
Or the Christmas present that they asked for.
Yeah, or if a job, isn't what you thought it would be, or if a relationship isn't what it is, then we can a lot of times feel like we are somehow wronged, or reality does, because we had the expectation, reality now needs to be forced to fit our expectation, or pay for not meeting my expectation, meaning be punished, right?
Yeah.
And so there's a sense that and I think that it is easy. I think that and I do this all the time. Like when you're disappointed, you know what I mean? It's usually because how many times when we're disappointed is it due to the situation, or is it due to the fact that we had an expectation that really was never spoken or written in? Yeah. Now, there's legit disappointment. There's totally justified disappointment when people don't do, or things aren't as they should be. There's real justice. But but when it comes to things that you can't even prep for, kind of like you with with your marriage, you can't that was a totally justified expectation, or a sort of rational expectation. Right. It wasn't like anything has gone wrong. Yeah. Insofar as but we can, and people do, when somebody dies, or when like a family member dies, and it's not due to any type of, it's a natural cause or something like that. We can still apply this sort of expectation, this disappointment that comes with our expectations, and say it's God's fault, or it's the government's fault, or it's my family's fault, and we all do that. Myself included. But I think that setting your I guess the question would be, before we wrap up, it's how do you think that you sort of said, how do we guard against unnecessary or maybe inflated disappointment? Yeah. What would you say?
Yeah. No, that's a
because you mentioned question. No, but you I think that something that I thought of when you were talking about, you were saying that the Christian's looking at the cross, and you're like.
And I think that's what it has to do with,
when times are good, you look at the cross. When times are bad, you look at the cross. And it's kind of, the waves are up and down, but then you have this sort of consistent reference point.
The cross is reality, right? And God is reality. So it's almost like, right, truth is the intellect matching up with reality. Whenever our expectations are, I think what we can work on is working on our expectations and conforming those, into what God has planned, and God's providence, and what He has for you, because you can control you can't control the government, you can't control the outside, you can't control I can't control my students in the classroom, right? But I can have an expectation in my classroom, and I can I can change myself.
And when the expectation is not matched, you can still reference this is all the apostles were totally disappointed. They had an expectation, and it was totally. Yeah. But there's something that one other thing that I thought of when you were just mentioning that is someone brought me this book of Padre Pio. A colleague brought a book of Padre Pio, and they said, "Can you explain this paragraph? I don't know what it means." And I'm like, "I'm not an expert on this," but I said, "I'll look it over." And it was comparing Abraham's life and his decision to sacrifice Isaac to Padre Pio in his life. And at first, I didn't really know what they were saying, but after reading it a couple times and talking it through, the author is Kierkegaard was talking about Abraham. It's a block quote from Kierkegaard, and then the author was comparing this paragraph to Padre Pio. The point that it was saying, though, is to look at Abraham's life from a secular or a worldly view, meaning without faith, is to verge on, is to read a story that verges on the edge of absurdity. And the person who was asking me about the book was asking me, what does this have to do with Padre Pio? What does that mean? And I was saying, if you look at Padre Pio's life, and you look at the things that he did, and the things how he was persecuted, and how he was sort of forced with tons of crazy obedience, from an outside perspective, it almost looks unjust. Like, it there are injustices, but what I'm saying is it almost looks unjust for him to obey. It almost looks wrong. And I said, I think that when you look at, he probably had certain expectations going into the monastery, and when those things were, he did have, Actually, this is a bad example, because he had 3 visions of what his life would be like before he entered.
Yeah.
And it was actual battle with the devil. So basically, but so I guess the thing that I was to tie it back to what you're saying about the reference point or the cross being reality is that there are moments in life, and it's usually when our expectations aren't met, that 2 things are sort of happening. There's providence, right? Mm-hmm. There's justice and mercy happening at the cross, or there's mercy and punishment even, and then there's obedience, and then there's tyranny. There's this weird thing that happens sometimes with God's will that makes life. I think only a Christian could conceive of it making any sense or being good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, and
if not, change a channel. If God's not real and this is happening, then just change the channel, do whatever,
shut it off, get a new TV, whatever. Yeah. No,
and I think that the cross insures against that, or it gives us a third option between staying in, not a third option between staying and going, but seeing unmet expectations or disappointments with some level of providence.
Yeah, and then the last thing that made me think of was the worldly things in our life. We can have expectations of, again, whatever it is, coffee, alcohol, whatever it is, right? There's expectations and reality, and I think most of the time we will be disappointed with our expectations, right? Or from our expectations. But when we think of heaven, or the heavenly expectation, the reality is far greater than anything we could ever think about.
You can't set your expectations accurately.
Not every single expectation is low, right? Every single expectation.
So every disappointment we have in life. Hold on. So every disappointment we have in life, not necessarily because we set our expectations too high,
right?
But every unnecessary disappointment is because we set our expectation too high for what's coming. And what you're saying is that it is a absolute impossibility to set your expectations too high. Correct.
Yeah, even if it was something I don't know, something not ridiculous, but if someone had a view of I've heard students or youth say something well, if there's not Dr. Pepper in heaven, why would I want to go?
Yeah.
And it's dude, you have no idea that the goodness.
Dr. Pepper has so few flavors in it.
It's just 23 flavors.
Only 23 flavors.
There's so many more.
Somebody told me they used to be served hot.
That's gross.
Yeah. Anyways, I don't know if that's true.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, but I think that's a good place to wrap up.
Yeah.
I think that that's a good place to sort of end it. That we should always temper our expectations or our disappointments with just knowing that that's suffering, and that Christ is with us in that on the cross, and then also that no matter how bad it gets down here, there's no way that we can expect too much from what's coming.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wow, very heavenly ending.
Yep.
Very heavenly ending.
Beautiful.
Cool.
Beautiful.
All right. Well, thank you guys for joining us on Bad Analogies. We look forward to seeing you on the next one. God bless.